Tracy, you're on the Michael Berry Show. Tracy, you're on the Michael Berry Show.
Hi, Michael.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you, why do you think that our government hasn't gone after the Saudis for their part of the 9/11 attack?
I don't know. Why do you think, Tracy?
I don't know, Michael. I'm asking you.
I give up. You tell me.
I have no idea. That's why I'm asking you. And I think it's important that we, ask that question.
Okay. But if you ask a question, you generally assume or suspect some answer. What do you think that would be?
I have no idea. I think that the 9/11 investigation should be reopened in this country and, about the 9/11 attacks. And I think we should find out the answer to that question.
Okay. Do you think we should also check on Indonesia?
Were they part of the 9/11 attacks?
I don't know. If we're asking about countries.
That's a good question. I have no idea.
What about Mongolia? Nobody's asked about their role.
I think the 9/11 attacks should be reopened.
Was this an Ulaanbaatar-driven activity? Think about that. I've heard no mention of it. Was this from Kuala Lumpur?
I have no idea.
Have you seen video footage of what happened in Tibet the day of the attack?
No, I haven't.
Neither have I. You don't think that's a little bit odd?
I think it's all odd.
I saw the Dalai Lama came to Houston 2 years after 9/11. Where was he in between?
No idea.
Okay, so why is nobody asking this? Kim Jong-il and his son Lil Kim, they shot off the rocket recently, right? It didn't go off. How do we know they didn't have a rocket on 9/11? We don't know that?
Very interesting.
Coney 2012, you know about that, right?
No.
You don't know about Coney 2012, the LRA out of Kenya?
No, I don't.
Nobody has been able to determine where Coney was on 9/11/2001 and what influence he may have had or did not have. We don't know on 9/11.
There's so many questions that we have, and they should be answers. I think the American people have the right to know the answers.
I think you're right. You're right. Are you familiar with Dennis Kucinich?
No, not particularly.
He's the leader of Croatia. Dennis Kucinich has said and done some really, really troubling things. No, do you remember the Yugo in the late 80s? There was a car called the Yugo. Do you remember that?
I do.
It actually had the chassis of a tank. It was in production for 3 years. It was $3,900. They sold it in this country. And then they stopped. And nobody ever told us why they stopped. You remember that?
I don't particularly remember that. I think that in the 80s I wasn't really concerned about politics.
Well, and that's the whole country was doing that. Go look up Yugo, Y-U-G-O. Late 80s. You could only get it in red. It was $3,900. Ask somebody why they suspended production of that car. Start doing the math. See if it doesn't add up. James, you're on the Michael Berry Show.
Hey.
Hey.
Well, I was actually in the military at the time when September 11th happened. And I was actually in Fort Polk, Louisiana with some guys from 82nd, which 80% of them lived in New York or were from there. And we were doing mount training. We were actually in rotation to go to Kuwait. And the planes hit the towers. They rounded us all up, put us in a muddy tent, and turned on the TV. And it was just the reaction of everybody was just crazy. I don't even know how else to explain it. A lot of those guys are dead now. We all wanted to go to war. As soon as we saw that, we were ready to go. We were just ready, and there were people whose parents were there in the building. It was just it was crazy. That's actually the reason why I called, was because that was actually the reason why I voted for Obama, because he promised that he was going to pull us out of there. And that's also the reason why I'll never vote for that guy again. I mean, since he's been in office, I've lost everybody on my tank crew. I'm the last one. So, pretty difficult.
Yeah, it's people like you, James. It's people like you that are the reason we should remember. It's people that can't call. It's families that can't call. You know, I got a call from a listener. It's been a few years ago. And he went by a fake name. He called himself Patrick or Sam or some Christian name. He was Pakistani Muslim. And he called, and we were talking about the 9/11 Victory Mosque that President Obama had just endorsed. And you'll remember he endorsed the Victory Mosque and then came back and said, because they saw what a backlash there was, and he came rushing back and said, no, we just said that you know, people ought to be. And he made up this whole lie about what he had and hadn't said. And a caller called in, and he said, I believe they ought to be able to build a mosque there. Build a mosque anywhere you want in this country. Because if one group has pushed for religious freedom in this country, it's Muslims. And I find it very funny that the Democrats bend over backwards for the most radical Muslim elements, like CARE, when at the same time telling gays they should have the right to get married, when many radical Muslims believe gays ought to be murdered. And this guy called in and said, we ought to be able to build a mosque wherever we want. And I said, but what about the families? What about the children? What about the victims? And he said he didn't care. And I said something that got me in a lot of trouble. But it was the anger of remembering and the anger on behalf of the lost caused me to do that.
My good